Welcome to Silicon Heartland Sessions, where we highlight the voices driving innovation across the Midwest and beyond. Today's mini episode features Warner Moore, founder of Gamma Force and the Tech Community Coalition, whose journey into tech was anything but traditional. Inspired by the early internet, open source communities, and a certain Nirvana anthem, Warner shares how his drive to challenge the status quo led him from enterprise IT into entrepreneurship. Before we dive in, a big thank you to our sponsors who make this podcast possible. Rackspace Technology, your trusted multi-cloud solutions partner. Varonis, protecting enterprise data where it lives, on-prem and in the cloud. Trace3, helping organizations innovate through advanced IT strategy and execution. And Sigma Computing, enabling business users to explore live data without code. Let's get into it. So, hey, welcome to Silicon Heartland Sessions. Part of what makes our community so special are the great leaders in our IT community. And today I'm talking with Warner Moore, who's the founder of GammaForce.io and the Tech Community Coalition. He's also very active in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. Thanks for joining me today, my friend. We've got a lot to discuss.
My pleasure, Sean. Thanks so much for having me, and thanks everyone for joining.
Hell yeah. Hey, so why don't we start by briefly talking about your IT journey, and where I think it's fair to say that you've taken a very, in my opinion, non-traditional route. And just to set some context, I understand you have a strong connection to a certain song by Nirvana. Obviously, a huge Nirvana fan myself. I won't mention the name of the song, but for those listeners that are Nirvana fans, lyrics from this song include things like, just because you're paranoid, don't mean they're not after you, and gotta find a better way when I'm there. So, Warner, to me, this song conveys themes of, rebellion, challenging the status quo, striving for authenticity. And as you think about your own professional journey, how have these themes informed and influenced you personally?
Gotta find a way. Yeah, it's interesting. I've found that those sorts of attributes are more commonly shared in entrepreneurial circles, right? Often it's driving change, and that was really what inspired my interest in technology early on, with the early days of the internet. It was academic largely at that time, but bunch of smart folks around the world talking to each other and sharing information, learning. So not only was it a great way to speak to diverse folks, it was a great platform to learn on.
Heck yeah. Yeah, that was very, very exciting times.
Oh yeah, it was. It's funny to think of how far we've gone. I'll never forget the first time I saw a URL or a website on a billboard, and I just got back from San Francisco, and there's some of the nerdiest billboards you can imagine there. Different world now.
Yeah, this is very, very true. So you've taken a very interesting route in your career. I understand you started off pursuing your journey in the enterprise, and then transitioned to what you do today as an entrepreneur. Maybe you can share with our listeners, what your story is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, being interested in the leading areas of technology at the time, it really directed me to the companies that were innovating with the latest technologies. And back then, lots of open source technologies were taking over commercial Unix and early internet technologies. And if we looked at the landscape at the time, those who were adopting those technologies were really more entrepreneurial organizations. So I had a bit of an entrepreneurial mindset by default, but really my passion was about taking modern technology and using it to drive change and solve real problems. So really got me active in the startup space.
That's exciting. So were there any specific products? You mentioned open source. Were there any specific, products back then that really were like served as like the tipping point for you that, or maybe a source of inspiration for you?
I'm not sure IRC would count. I mean, really all internet technologies, right?
Yeah.
HTTP, but before that, Usenet. I was active using news groups. One of our old school internet protocols that has since been fully depreciated. We don't have many of those. But I'd say really just the tools that enabled us to share and communicate across geographically separated spaces. So
Yeah.
distributed computing was really an early passion for me.
Yeah, and I remember the first time I used AOL Instant Messenger. It blew my mind at the time. The fact that I could sit there and type something, and then somebody across the world would see it immediately, and they could respond back and forth. It was really amazing.
Yeah, it truly was. It's funny thinking back, if that might have been one of the first technologies that really got mainstream adoption. I mean, sure, we had email, UUCP, and then SMTP came later, but email was still kind of an obscure thing, but instant messaging got a whole lot of adoption.
Yeah,
ICQ before that, before
that's
AIM
right.
opened up the network to the world.
Thanks for tuning in to Silicon Heartland Sessions. If this episode sparked your curiosity, be sure to subscribe, share, and leave a review. And a final shout out to our sponsors, Rackspace Technology, Varonis, Trace3, and Sigma Computing for their support of our growing tech community.